it is quite common for people to believe that there are better times throughout the day to consume their meals. Now, what I want you to consider is, as we know from previous videos and previous calculations, we have two daily targets that we need to adhere to in order for us to achieve the results that we want. Number one is our daily caloric intake, which has already been calculated with our activity levels and our minor deficit that we're looking to go into. And also our daily protein intake, which is based on our current body weight times by the standardized 2 grams of protein per kilogram. So I've got two daily figures that I need to work towards, and I always get asked, how often should I be eating? How many meals should I be eating per day? When should I be eating this? What's my pre-workout meal? What's my post-workout? What's better to eat before I train, etc., etc. Now, I have different answers for all of those questions because it depends on many variables. But in terms of simplicity of this, I want you to just keep things as simple as you can, and I want you to identify when you wake up and when you go to bed, and then divide those figures by when it's going to be realistic for you to sit down and consume a nice balanced meal. Because I work with many individuals that work for the NHS, and structuring breaks and regular feeding intervals isn't necessarily ideal, and therefore going to be setting them up for failure more than any progress that we're going to get in terms of their nutrition. So if we were to look at consuming X amount of meals, I'd do a couple of little simple equations, and I'd go 2350, my total daily calorie consumption, and I'd divide it by the amount of meals that I may want to consume. And let's just say I want to consume 3 meals per day. Okay, so we're going to just make a note of these. I'm going to have a 783 calories, 783 calories, 783 calories. Okay, I'm going to divide my protein intake, which is 160 grams per day, also by those 3 meals. And I can see that I've got 53 grams of protein, 53 grams of protein, 53 grams of protein. Now, you might be looking at that and going, wow, they're quite highly caloric meals. Well, they are. But if that is your only way of feeding 3 times a day due to your schedule, your time restraints, then that might be the best option for you. Me personally, I wouldn't favour that option. I see that as too regimented, okay? Plus, I'm not a big fan of hitting this high amount of protein here. I would work in the region of 30 to 40 grams per sitting. So again, going back to it, we go 2350, my daily calories. Again, I look at dividing it by 4 meals per day. And that 4 meals per day now gives me 587 calories. 587, 587, and 587. I can do 160 divided by 4 meals a day, and it gives me my 40 grams of protein. And already I look at that and I see that as being far more achievable. And then we look at one last thing, and we would maybe look at dividing them by 5 feeding points per day. And we go 2350 divided by the 5 gives us 470. So we've got 470 calories per sitting. And what that consists of is completely up to you at this stage, because we need to make sure that our diet is something that we enjoy as individuals, based on the foods that we like to eat, etc. So we've now got 3 options. We've got 3 meals per day, we've got 4 meals per day, we've got 5 meals per day. Now, you might not want to live such a rigid lifestyle, and that's absolutely fine, but it's very good to get that visual feedback at what would work best for you. So I would personally scrap that. I would scrap my 3 meals a day. It's just not feasible for me. I'm in a better position where I can get up and I can have my breakfast at 6 a.m. I can have my breakfast at 6 a.m. I could have a mid-morning snack at 10 a.m. I could have my lunch at 1 p.m. I could have my mid-afternoon snack at say 4 p.m. and then I usually have tea between 8:30 and 9 p.m. once I've finished work. So there you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meals a day, and that could work really well for me and set me up to make some good progress. 470 calories per time if I wanted to, but what I always do is I just go, well, there or thereabouts anyway. But this feeding parameter for protein, 32 to 40 grams, anything around 30 to 40 grams per sitting is absolutely fine, okay? So what I'd encourage you to do is when you've worked out your TDEE, based on the calculations of that, give yourself a minor deficit and you'll get your caloric requirement. I can help you with this as well. You know that your body weight times 2 grams of protein is going to give you your protein goal per day, and it's again a target. So what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the number of meals that you can eat per day. If you wake up and you don't fancy breakfast, that's absolutely fine. If you're still not hungry by 10 o'clock, that's absolutely fine. But what you then need to do is identify that if your day is in a shorter window, how are you going to make that fit? Are you going to have more regular feeding intervals, 1 p.m., 3 p.m., maybe 6 p.m., and then again at 8 p.m., okay, or even 9 p.m. It doesn't matter how late in the day it could go. You could even have a feed at 10 p.m., okay? What you need to identify is what's going to be most manageable for you, how many meals you need to divide it by, and then you can move the day around. If I know that I'm going out for a highly caloric dinner, then I'm going to push all of my calories back towards the later end of the day, and maybe I'm just going to focus on some lower carb, lower fat options earlier on in the day, but ensuring that I still get some protein throughout the day and then bump these calories over to the latter end. So work out your equation, work out what's going to suit you in terms of meal frequency and timings of feeds, dependent on your availability throughout the day, whether it's 3, 4 or 5 meals per day, and just allow yourself a little bit of flexibility with it. Don't think I've got to eat at this time, but when you see it and it's a bit of visual feedback, it makes it far more manageable rather than overwhelming.